Casey will get the corn to make the meal with. Inside the crib, there's corn that's stored from this year's corn harvest, and there's both yellow and white corn in the crib. And what we would always have to do, and what he'll have to do today, is to use that sack he's got there in his hand and get up in the crib and pick out the white corn. White corn's used because it has a different flavor. If you use yellow corn to cook with, it has a little sweeter taste. And some people don't like that as well as they do the white corn. You see, he's disappeared into the crib. The cattle have all come around because they want somebody to throw them out a little nubbin of corn to eat. This old house is the house where Casey's grandmother and grandfather lived for a while, and where his father and brother lived for a short time. Casey has disappeared into the bowels of the corn crib in search of the elusive white corn. There's not very much of it usually. And it takes a little while to find it, separate it from the rest of it. Morning, old heifer. Good morning. How are you all today? This farm is called the Lost Creek Farm and was originally purchased by Casey's great-grandfather, who lived in Floyd County, but kept this farm as a working farm also. And the sons were expected to come work on the farm, take care of the cattle. The cattle are coming down to visit with Casey. She's got her ear of corn there she's working on. Casey's going to display his skills as a farm boy here. He's going to...
First of all, this is only white corn.
That's the white corn. That's some of it that he got. The corn that he'll be grinding into meal was...
Contrasted with the yellow corn.
Hold it down there so we can see it. See, the white corn, of course, is a different color, a little different texture. It will be used to make the meal out of. It's okay, they can eat all of that. That's not too big.
Keep the white for...
Yeah. That's your meal project. Casey's such a wonderful person. Here are all of his girlfriends standing around waiting for him to feed them. When we get started in the milling process, this belt is an old leather belt. It'll be hooked up to a tractor that will be sitting out here someplace. It'll be hooked onto a pulley on the back of the tractor. And as the pulley pulls this belt, turns a wheel over here that is connected to the burrs that are inside the mill. And the burrs on this one happen to be metal, but some of them were stone burrs. And as the mill operates, you put the corn up here in the hopper, and the corn comes down out of the hopper into a sieve-like thing here, drops down into the side and is fed into the burrs. And it goes down between them. They're beveled so that the corn go between them. And it grinds it up into what we know as cornmeal. It takes the grains of corn and just grinds it up. Over on this side, there's this little wheel here with a handle on it. when you loosen this, you can adjust how far apart the burrs are. The closer they are, the finer the meal will be, and the farther apart, the coarser it will be. Some people like coarse meal, and some like it fine. We use real coarse meal for putting in or battering fish when we fry it. After it's ground, it'll come out here. You'll have a tub or a sack or something there to put it on, and it's ready to eat.
Get out of the way, Bert. Get down. Just the screw. I've got a bolt in the end of it here. And always when I shut down, I always just turn that screw one turn. Turn that screw up on the edge. Just loosen that, go back left one turn. Bring this screw back on top. Well then, when you go to reset it, grind the meal, it's, you know about where to set it to start with. And because that gives you a guide, just to turn that around, I usually turn it pretty close and stop and then start. Don't want to turn it, but just a fraction of a turn. It's time to adjust it down to meal. And so that, of course, that's really, and adjusting the corn down, that has a lot to do with what of the fineness of a meal. If you go to, you can set it to where it's grinding what you want, and you open that corn up, more feed, and it'll change it into the fineness of the meal. And because that's got a spring over there that rocks press against that holds them apart. And it's got to have the pressure, so much pressure in that. Well, when you give it too much corn, all right, it opens them up, puts more pressure in there, takes more pressure to grind it. So you've got a quarter of meal then.
What's going on inside the mill while that thing's turning?
Well, the rock are in the center. They're deeper. They're concaved out.
Right.
See, they in the center, possibly, I don't know, they're 2 inches, possibly, in depth in the center but in the rocks, and of course they're sloped out to the outside, and when it comes to outside, then they're just about, there's just about no groove. These others, it's grooved all the way around.
Yeah.
And then when it gets to the outside, you're just about down to, well, they are really zero. There's some little grooves and clear out, but they're just about, the rock or smooth. I mean, they're.
And those rocks rubbed together, is that what grinds the meal?
That's right. They're awful close together. If they get together, you can't eat the meal.
Yeah. Like flour.
You
got rock.
It's got rock taste,
yeah.
And it's rough.
You must have done that before then.
I have. I've done it, but you can tell, you can smell it. I can't smell it now, but anybody can smell can. Swing it around, but I can't anymore. I can't smell anything. I can't. And a lot of things don't taste. I can't.
All right. Dad thought these were metal burrs, but you said they're stone, right?
No, they're stone.
Okay.
Yeah, the metal burrs you couldn't sharpen. And the metal burrs, now that's what, of course, another big hammer mill. That's what they make all this meal on that you buy in the store. It's on the metal. well, about what you might can buy it, I don't know of any. But then, cause the hammer mill's is much faster and all, and it makes a round mill. I ground some on the hammer mill. I had a hammer mill here. And when I ground crushing corn, and I ground some, but I never found much. I didn't like it.
Well, the rocks don't make it round, they just crack it, don't they? Grind it up.
It's ground. It's kind of more or less flat.
Yeah.
Okay, first off, we're in Carter County, Kentucky, which is far east Kentucky, about as far as you can get without going into West Virginia, on my grandfather's farm. Where we were just before was my great uncle's farm. That's Howard Allen, and this is Woodrow Allen. And the person you saw standing next to the mill before, and her talking when I was up getting the corn, was my dad, Larry Allen, who grew up here in Carter County. And first of all, the steps to the mill were, first you have to get the white corn or the yellow corn, whichever one you want to get. And we did that. We got in there and got it out of the crib. You have to shell it, get it off the cob, and then put it through the mill. So we're going to do that probably tomorrow, since it's kind of wet today and you don't want to get water into the meal. And about some of the things Uncle Howard said that you might not have been able to hear is the stones. The closer the stones, the finer the meal is going to be. If you adjust it and you let more corn in, then it's going to come out coarser meal. And one thing we did say was that they are stone wheels that are in there, the burrs are. And when he says that you got to sharpen the stones, actually what you got to do is roughen the edges so that it makes it coarse. And as the corn goes in, it goes into the center where it's coarsest, and it works its way out the wheel, out the burr. And by the time it gets to the outside, the stone isn't rough at all, and that's the finishing process that makes the meal very fine. So that we talked to him a little bit while the camera wasn't running, and instead of making him repeat it, you sharpen it with the hammer. And they've had that mill, I think he said, since the 30s. I guess that was right. And they've operated one up at their old home in Floyd County, and it had a much bigger engine that they did more, and they did it for other people also, I think. And so one of the reasons that you do the meal at a mill instead is because my dad's mother, who's a Francis, her father made this. It's a grater, and it's kind of a smaller meal maker here. What he did was take pretty thick metal. He bent it around a frame so that it was kind of got this semicircle shape here, and then he took a nail and drove nails through it to make the metal stick out on one side, and you can see it's full of them. Then he just nailed it to a frame. And what you do is just hold it over your little thingy here and take the corn. Of course, you don't want to get the corn that's so dry it comes off the cob, and grate it, and the meal will fall into your container here. And that was the other thing, that when you're picking out your corn, one thing Pap says is you want to get it so it's so hard that it's not good to cook, but it's still got enough moisture it stays on the cob. And I don't know if we've done that properly or not, but you can grate it on this. And I think one of the hardest job he said that Grandpa Francis ever had was when he made enough meal for the Baptist Union up there, or in the Southern Baptist Association up in the mountains, was making enough meal on this for everybody to eat. And of course this meal is probably a lot coarser than it is coming out of the not very easy, as you can see, especially not very easy on your fingers if you got them on. If you look inside, that's awful lot of work for a little bit of produce there. What we're going to do tomorrow is, I think we've got 2 or 3 sacks of white corn that we're going to run through the mill, and we'll see how much, you'll get to see how much that makes. And I'll probably bring a little bit of it back for the project. And I think we're probably going to maybe make some yellow meal too, out of yellow corn, and I think that's supposed to be a little bit sweeter. And that's probably what we're going to do now. So I guess we'll start it up again tomorrow, and maybe try to get interviews with them, or if I can talk with them and then put it on tape so that you can hear a little more about their background with the meal and with working a mill. So I guess that's about it. All right, we decided to go ahead today and shell the corn, and what it is, we just crank this. It goes down through here, and these little knobs in here will knock the kernels off the cob. Just come around here where you can see. Like that. And we're going to go ahead and do the yellow corn because we went ahead and started it, and then we're going to go ahead and do the white. So we're going to get done with this tonight, and probably the next time you see us, we'll have shelled all of our corn and be ready to go. But this is the second step after you get your corn. You have to shell it before you can make the meal out of it. Okay? Stop.
Back before there was a lot of toilet paper available, when you went to the bathroom, you'd take 3 red Cobs and 1 white one. You'd wipe on the first 2 would be red. This is what you use first. Then you use this one to see if you need to use the 3rd red one.
Okay, that's the corn cob story. The white corn has white cobs underneath it, and yellow corn has the red cobs here. This tub has the kernels of white corn to do, so we're going to go on and do that, but we had to share that interesting little corn cob story with you.
Casey will bring these back to the university so that you all can have access to them. They're kind of hard to find good cobs these days, and these are all just a real good size to use.
I'll bring them back to you, Dr. Albee. Here on the farm, Pap has cattle here. It's where he gets the beef. There's a bull there that we eat here. Here's the pond where I've fished ever since I can remember. We eat the fish out of there. Got everything you need out here, including the satellite dish, a splash of pop culture here in our landscape. Of course, you know that's